Hello, everyone. Welcome in. I am JJ from Softr. I'm here with Max from n8n, and we have a show for you today. Max, how you doing?
I'm doing real well, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm sorry that you got sick, but I'm glad you're on the mend, and we're ready for an entertaining show, huh?
Yes, sir. I was real worried that we wouldn't be able to make it, but thanks to the power of modern medicine and a little bit of rest and ginger, we're here.
There we go. Beautiful. So we're gonna wait a couple minutes for folks to come on in, but we do have a really exciting show for you today. We are gonna go about 60 minutes, 30 minutes building the interface in Software, 30 minutes building the AI agent in n8n. Both Max and I are going to show you best practices for building in both platforms. And we have a lot to share with you, a lot of nuggets. Both of our platforms have grown tremendously in the past 3, 6, 12 months. So it's a really good look at what's new, what's hot, and how we can help you build full stack applications very quickly. We're going to build just about a full stack app in the next hour together. And we're going to be giving you a lot of leave behinds. So if you haven't RSVP'd yet, please RSVP. Let me put the Luma link in the chat now and RSVP there because we're going to give you the template that we're building with in Software, the template that we're building with in n8n, and discount codes for you, new customers, to get started for free in both platforms for the next month. So definitely RSVP. You also get the recording of this as well. So let me put that in chat. Let us know where you're calling in from. We have over 600 people RSVP for this. It's going to be a packed
Wow.
show. We're ready to go on this Friday. How about it, Max?
Oh, I'm excited for this one, JJ. This is yeah, we're showing a bunch of best practices, especially on the agentic side. And I think what we're going to show is also going to be a really good inductive learning tool for not just doing exactly what we're doing, but all manner of generating proposals, using tools, all the sorts of things that a lot of folks are interested in. But there's not a lot of best practice around sometimes in implementation. So really excited to get into this with you, JJ.
Awesome. Well, it's been a couple minutes. Why don't we go over what we're going to be talking about today, starting with introductions. For those that don't know, I am JJ. I lead our community and education at Softr. Softr is a front end builder. We're working towards full stack, but we're a front end builder. We like to think of ourselves as the Canva app for app building, where 80-90% of the needs that you have for internal business tools, client portals, you can do in Softr. You can spin it up in just a couple of hours to a week. And anyone on your team, operations professionals, sales, HR, can put together beautiful custom interfaces for their business data. We work with over 14 data sources, and we have the REST API allowing us to integrate with many data sources no matter where your data is. And then on the other side, we have Max.
Hey everyone, I'm Max from n8n. I started off at n8n as a head of design and then moved into advocacy because I loved our community and I loved using our tool. We're a powerful workflow automation platform with some pretty kick-ass AI and agentic functionality. So for the last 5 years, we've been building a really robust automation platform that doesn't box you in. So semi-technical and technical people also appreciate us, but it's definitely not just for engineers. And over the last 2 years, we've added a ton of agentic capabilities, which I think one thing that separates us from some of the new players in that space is that we have all the other traditional workflow automation stuff that you need to actually realize powerful automation. So people use us for all kinds of ops and back office, but also I think a really neat use case that we're going to show today is n8n as your backend for your front end app, especially with all this agentic and AI stuff going on. It's a great tool for prototyping through to prod. And yeah, excited to get into this
We're
today.
lucky to have you here, Max. You
Appreciate
were
it.
employee 5? Was it 5?
I think four,
Okay,
something like
no
that.
one's counting really,
Yeah, right. But I remember there was four of us in a room with the cheapest IKEA tables they have. And today, actually, a couple of weeks ago, we announced the Series B raise. So it's been a wild 5-year journey. And I think that the biggest, most exciting thing about this journey is just seeing how important community is. I'm sure you agree, JJ, and how much they can make the product that you're putting out so much stronger from their feedback, from their advocacy, and all that. So to the whole n8n community that's watching or that's been supporting us, big thank you to you as well.
Hey, all right. So on our side, we're going to be building with Softr. We're building a multi-tenant portal where we're going to get in there and we'll have 3 different user groups. We will have a tenant. If for those that rent, you are the tenant. And then we have the technician, those that come in and need to do a service request. And then we have the building owner, the admin, who actually approves the request. All right. And so in Softr, we're building a multi-tenant system allowing for visibility for each of those user groups and a user experience built for each of those user groups. And the magic here that connects Softr to n8n is that when the technician goes in and submits a new service request, the technician on its phone can just say, hey, this building or this unit needs a new dishwasher, needs a sink, and fix the ceiling. And then we're going to send that plain text just to n8n. And then on n8n side, we are going to use an AI agent to fetch the pricing from our company's pricing list that we have, and then create a proposal that we send back to the admin, the supervisor, with the total, the detailed amount for each, saying, hey, do you approve this? We'll showcase that in Softr. We'll use a signature block for the admin to approve it, and then the service technician can get in there, approve it, and then the tenant can see the status of their unit being repaired, if it's been approved, it's in progress, and log into the portal and see this every step of the way. So we're going to have a lot of fun with building this together over on Softr side and n8n side. Any questions before we start and dive into it? No? All right. Well, let's get on over to the Softr side of things. I'm going to quickly bring this over here. Can you see my updated tab right here? There we go. So we're on the n8n side. I just wanted to tease the agent that we're going to be building. We have the Webflow, the webhook over here, our agent node, and then we're going to be doing a multiple things that Max is going to walk us through once we get to n8n a little bit further along. But first, I do want to start over in Softr. And so I'm going to share this tab. And so over here, Max, there we go. Let me just make sure it's visible for everyone. Is that better? All right.
That's looking good, JJ.
I think that looks all right. We'll just try it one more time. See if we can adjust to that. Nope. All right. We'll come over here. So here we are in Softr. And this is actually the preview of what we're going to be building. And so I am currently logged in as a technician. But as you can see here, that I have a technician, I have a tenant, and I have an admin. And those are the three user groups that we have talked about. Okay. And in those, and Softr makes it really easy. Sorry, Max, I got to adjust this screen. It's not giving me enough bandwidth there.
No problem. Let me see if you need me to do something on my side.
I think we should be okay. So, all right. So here in Softr, I can see it's still cutting me off a little bit.
Yeah. Can you resize your screen a little bit, little letterboxing?
A little bit.
Thanks, guys, for bearing with us.
All right. We're almost there. It's an interesting one. That's the negative of working on a 50-inch ultra wide screen. All right. So hopefully this is okay. Max, if you want to just check in chat to make sure that they're okay there. But otherwise, sure. Here I am in Softr, and I am in my studio here. And within the studio, we make it really easy for you to interact with your interface. Let me just bring it a little bit closer there. Interact with your interface. So we have our various pages, our theme, our data. Again, you can connect to 14 different data sources. So in this case, I am using Airtable, and it's pulling in data from Airtable. And that is a two-way sync. So I can showcase the data and I can update the data, depending on who you want to update the data. We also have our users table where we bring in our users. And again, this is all synced real time with Airtable. And for those that don't know Softr, we also make authentication super easy. So with the ability to just toggle login, what kind of authentication method you want, and if you want to allow sign up or not, Softr automatically builds all those pages for you and takes away all of that headache of, reset password, permissions denied, all that kind of stuff is built for you out of the box and looks pretty good. And so here we are in our pages with Softr. And this is the main page that we're going to be building together, which is our dashboard. And in our dashboard CRM, we have our banner up here. We have quick links bringing us to related services, properties, units. We have our new tab container, which allows us to switch between different types of blocks in here. And what I mean by blocks is that Softr utilizes a block mechanism where you can drag and drop these blocks onto the page and show your data in tons of different ways. In fact, we have over 100 different block types that you can choose from, configurations, etc., to really showcase your data in many different ways, whether it's in payments, grids, details, tables, calendars, Kanban, charts, comments, etc. You can really do a lot with it. All right. And so if I go back to my preview over here, I'm going to share this tab. I could see that I'm now previewing the app as a technician. And so as the technician, I can go in, I could see related service requests, and I can even create new service requests. All right. And so if I go into the service request, I could see related details for this specific request. And so we're using an item details block for this. And then we could see related information in this situation and also leave comments for if we have any comments for this request. We can also go in and edit anything that we want. And the magic for this demo today is this line right here. We say generate a new proposal or generate something that, the tenant needs a new sink, dishwasher, and related plumbing expenses. From there, n8n's agent is able to use some funny logic to then say, okay, that webhook is going to go to the agent. It's going to check our pricing in our database. It's going to fetch the services that I mentioned in that plain notes, going to do some math with some calculator, and it's going to update our Airtable record with the updated amount. So that way, back in Softr, we can then see what that might be. And so if I go back to my Softr here, I can see view proposal, and we'll load up the proposal, and we'll see that this related unit has is pending a supervisor signature, but you could see that this needs a dishwasher, sink, and plumbing, the customer name, the technician assigned, and then the summary that is prepared, and then the total amount in this case, what that would be. And so there's a lot of different ways that we could do this, but this is the way that we want to do it in this demo. And I also want to show you that the technician doesn't have the ability to sign, but the admin does. And so if I go to log in as an admin user now, we'll now see a new ability for us to sign this proposal at the bottom here, right there. And so I can go in here and with our signature field, I can do our signature, and then that would be approved for the technician to then start work on this service request. Maxwell, let me stop right there and see if you have anything to add.
Yeah, well, what I wanted to say, I think the really neat thing that we're showing here is, right, like the technician doesn't have to know all the pricing and whatnot. They're on the job. All they have to do is understand what work needs to be done. And then our AI agent is populating all that context from the tools, et cetera, right? Since
Exactly.
you saw the pricing is in Airtable, someone from the admin team or whatnot, that pricing could update day to day potentially, right? Some of these parts could change in price. That's all happening live. So as soon as that proposal is generated, it's getting the absolute freshest version of all the context available in the business to go generate an accurate proposal.
Yeah, that's well said, Max. This is all dynamic data fetching smartly from your updated list of pricing, and this can apply to anything. While we are doing a real estate use case right now, it can apply to any other businesses that have pricing that you want to reference, a knowledge base that you want to reference, and n8n can go and fetch that information and send it back to Softr in a really smart way for you to then visualize.
Yeah, that's a really good point, JJ. I think like the thing to highlight again, because a lot of you probably are not running a building management company, is what we're showing ultimately, what JJ is showing the front end is how you're showing structured data in different views with different user types. And then in n8n, we're showing how to consume tools, how to prompt your AI agents to do tasks in a predictable way. So even if this isn't your use case, everything that you're learning here is going to be super useful, even beyond proposal generation, really for any kind of business use case.
Yeah, awesome. All right, let's keep moving on here. I'm going to start with a new app and then just show you how to get started with Softr for the first time. We're not going to get through the whole build, but I am going to show you some of the main steps that you'll take. And again, if you RSVP using the Luma link in the chat, you'll get the full template for the full build that you'll be able to dissect and really see the details of it a little bit later, along with the n8n one. Okay. All right. So back in Softr here, I'm going to go back to our studio, share this tab instead, and I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to show you from scratch here. We have 3 different ways to create an app from scratch. Start with a template. We have over 90 templates already built for you, or with AI. In this case, we are going to start from scratch, and I'm going to connect it to the database that I've already set up. So that is going to be an Airtable database. And the cool thing is that I can pull in this database our contracted database and choose which tables I want to have and kind of an app pre-created for me using the data that I already have. So I'm going to say, bring in my users table, my properties, my units, service requests, and even the pricing. We'll have pricing up there. So maybe the admins can go in and adjust the pricing in Softr rather than just in Airtable. So then Softr is going to create our app for us using our own data, and it's going to be a good starting spot for us. There'll be some things that we need to adjust, but again, a good starting spot.
Now, JJ, quick question. You're using Airtable there, but sort of what other data sources could we use for that database in Softr?
Yeah, so we have 14 different connections that you can use. So Airtable, Notion, Sheets, SmartSuite, Zeno, Monday, Supabase, HubSpot, BigQuery, SQL, our REST API, and then we are getting ready to launch our own internal tables as well. So there's a ton that you can pick from. And the really cool thing, Max, is that you can use one data source for this block, and then you can use one data source for this block.
Nice.
So you can combine multiple data sources. That's especially useful if you're having any kind of charting functionality where you want to have one chart showing your Stripe data, one chart showing your Shopify data, etc. You can build a good dashboard use case in that way.
Nice. Cool. I think that's nice too, because you don't have to duplicate sources. You can have just a single source of truth, right, for all your different sources. Like you don't have to copy Stripe data over from somewhere. You can just pull directly from there.
Yeah. Yep. There it is. So over here in the editor, whenever I click on a block, it exposes what I can then change for that block. And so if I click on this this grid block, I can see that this grid block is connected to this Airtable data source. I can go into that and then I can adjust everything. So you have tons of flexibility with Softr to really build the interface that you're looking for. You see that you have buttons there. I can quickly add those buttons, but I can also remove those buttons if we don't want those buttons to be used. Up here, we have an add record button. I can go in here and adjust the visibility. And so for folks that might be new to building, there are Softr makes it really easy to have different types of user groups so you can choose who can do what. So in our situation, it's a multi-tenant portal. The tenant, the person that's renting, we want to allow them to see their own unit, but they don't need to see all the units. They also don't need to create any properties or anything like that. So we want to give them just restricted ability to see their unit. But the admin, we want to give them ability to go in there and I'm just going to connect this to the data source real quick. We want them to go in there and be able to add whatever they need to add in that situation. So right now I'm just connecting our user database to the database for our Airtable database so we can bring in our users and sync that in a two-way direction. That's also going to allow us to bring in the roles that we have for our users to use that for user groups. All right, so over here in Airtable, I have my users table, which it's now syncing. And we see that we have roles, the admin, the tenants, and the technicians, right? And so I can go back over to Softr here. I can go to user groups, and I can create my first user group. And this can be a condition user group. And it can essentially say the role is, let's see, it pulls in automatically for you. That's going to be our admin. So that's going to be our admin group right there. And we're just going to create 3 different groups, condition-based, role, and that is going to be technician. And we'll say this is our technician group. Technician, spelled that wrong, but that's okay. And then we'll have our tenant group. And these will allow us to use a lot of functionality that's built in for us across the board. And so it's important to get those set up first. So we have our user group set up. Just a quick nod, we have data restrictions at a global level. So if just by default you wanted to add a restriction saying tenants can only see tenants data, then no matter where you are in the application, that is going to make sure that the tenants can only see their data at a server encrypted level, keeping your data really safe and protected. So we're business tooling, allowing you to take your sensitive business data, bring it to life with a beautiful interface, exactly how you want it to. All right. So over here, we have what they built for us in our dashboard page, but I want to turn this into more of a property page. So I'm going to go to the source right here, and I'm going to go over to properties, and I'm going to bring in our properties instead. And then it's going to start to auto map as much as possible. Now you see this search bar. I can go over to content, and I can either turn it on or off. I can choose which names I want to search by in that search bar. I can even add filters if I want to be able to filter by, who is the landlord for this. I could say, filter by landlords or whatever it may be. Software makes it really easy to add these filters and see the data that you need when you need to see it. So we have properties there. I also want to show you how you could use a container. So in containers, we can create this tab container, and I could say that this is going to be my properties, and then we'll have our units, and then we'll have our service requests. All right. And then from there, I could take this properties and I can move it inside the container right to properties right there. And then I am moving and grooving here. Any questions along the way, Max?
Let me check. I've been answering some of them in line, but let
Sure.
me take a look. I'll let you know in a moment.
Cool. So we have our properties there. I'm actually going to go up here and get rid of this little thing here. We have it there. I can actually go and add a new block. And for this block, I'm going to go to static. We have difference between dynamic, static, and container. Dynamic is when it's actually pulling in your data that you want to show. Static is more like landing page, blog stuff, that like marketing pages where you just need blocks to show static data. And in this case, I'm going to utilize one of our new blocks called a quick links. And this can directly link us to multiple areas across the application. And so I can say, let's bring this one, bring me to a certain page. I want to go to the service request page. So that's going to go service request. Let's say service request.
JJ, we do got one question. If is Softr a tool for building any SaaS, or
Sure.
is it more focused on internal tools?
It's really focused on internal tools and client portals. Those are the things that we do really well. We could build anything with Softr, but we do those two things really well, and we're building functionality specifically for those two use cases. So a lot of folks have SaaSes with Softr. We have the whole Stripe payment integration, all that kind of stuff, but it's really best for business tooling for your team, however you might need it.
Cool, thanks.
Cool. So we're starting to spin up our interface here. We're pulling in dynamic data. So whatever the logged in users, will show them their name here. We have some quick links linking around, and we have some main navigational features here. At any time, I can preview, which is going to put me on a dev sandbox environment, or I can publish, which will make it live to everybody. In this case, I just want to see what I got going here, and I'm going to preview it in our dev sandbox that only I can see it. So we are logged in. It logged us in as a certain user. I can minimize that. I can see things are starting to come to life. We're getting there. I can also switch between different users if I want as well. And so, yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't share that tab. So I'll come back here. I'll show you. This is the preview. It's bringing in the logged in user there that I'm logged in as. I can quickly navigate to different areas. And then I have the listing that I set up here. All right. And so beyond that, I want to get to one other.
JJ, just a quick question on this one. So is this a responsive website already? Because I can imagine the technician sometimes going to be on his phone.
Yeah, everything is fully responsive out of the get-go. Even like the menu, you can choose how you want your mobile responsive menu, whether it's top, bottom, etc. And then you can also stylize that for desktop as well. So this is all fully responsive right away. And something really cool too is if you're on the business plan, you could just go to settings, mobile app, and enable PWA and just have a PWA ready. So that's really cool because then you can download, your business users can download that app to their phone just by a QR code and then be able to access your app just then and there. So that's very helpful and super easy to do.
Nice.
All right, so let me bring over a couple things that I want to show you, and then we're nearing the end of my side, and then we'll get into n8n side as well. So I'm back on the main demo app, the template that we're going to give you at the end of this if you're RSVP. And so over here, I could see that this is a little bit more structured, put together. I want to show you how I get to the service request page. So I have this tab here, and I can get there by going into this table, and I can either add a request here, or I can open a request here. All right. And so by adding a request, I can go in there and say, say I'm a technician, I need to add a request. I'm going to add the request for the current day. This request is going to be, let's see, a technician review. And then I want to show how this is actually going to work. And so in this case, I need to have some notes. And for the notes here, I'm going to pull from my database, and I'm going to say something along the lines of, I need a sink repair, also a window repair, and some wall painting to fix up this unit. Now, that's all we're going to give it. n8n is going to do the rest of the work. We'll find some related properties of units that this this pertains to. We'll say that this is a new service, and we're going to go off and create that new service request. All right. And then from here, it's going to take us to that new service request detail page where we could see it a little bit more specifically. We'll go right in here, open that up. And now we're at that new request that we just created. And that's all we're really given it here. And then now from here, we're going to say create proposal. And this is what is going to actually trigger the webhook in n8n to trigger. And so now if we go over to our executions, we see that that just ran and that just succeeded. And then we had a successful output there. And so now we'll come back to Softr. We'll just refresh the page and we should be able to see our proposal that we just created. And there's the proposal. If you notice, the create proposal went away because I used some visibility rules to say, hey, if the proposal is created, then show view proposal. But if it's not created, then show create proposal. So now we'll click on view proposal and we have this process already created for us with this beautiful proposal ready to go and pending admin admin signature. And you'll see that it pulled in sink repair, window repair, wall repair, painting, using the pricing in our Airtable base, all just from this little fuzzy plain text description we gave it. So that's where we're going to end up. And on the software side, that's what you'll get for part of the template. But Max, why don't we hand it over to you now? And why don't you take us through the n8n side?
Absolutely. Right before that, JJ, we did have 1 or 2 questions that came in. And then I will, big shoes to fill following that demo. Let's see here. The one question I'm seeing is, there's a couple, but one theme I'm seeing is, does Softr support versioning when you're working through the different pages and modifying as you go?
It's a great question. We don't have versioning at the moment. We have other ways that you have history control and whatnot. You have your preview, like your sandbox and your production, but we don't have versioning within the sandbox environment yet.
Okay, gotcha. So you can still, you're working on it. You got your draft version, you got your published version. You don't have to go push live as you're working on it. Okay, very cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
Exactly.
All right, JJ, there might be 1 or 2 other questions in there, but I recommend I get going in there, and then if there's something that you see, it's good to answer from the Softr side, we do that.
Yeah.
All right, let me go ahead and share my screen, and we'll get started. So I think one thing that'd be really useful, JJ gave a quick example of the AI agent that we're going to build out of this backend, but I'm just going to quickly walk through in a bit more detail, and then we'll go build it out. So I'm in here within n8n in my workflow canvas. Let me just zoom in out a little bit. And what we're doing here is my webhook has some pinned data. That means we've already ran it before. So let me just quickly run this. And then we'll build it though out so you can see how to recreate all this. So what you're noticing is I clicked execute workflow and my webhook sent the data in that webhook. If I open it up in here, you can see there's this data that's coming in from the Softr side, getting sent in. We piped that into the AI agent. And then the AI agent used the pricing tool, the calculator tool, because it's summing values. So we don't want the AI LLM to do that. We want to use a specific tool for that. And then we had multiple thinking steps inside the AI agent as well. If I open this up, now I'm not going to explain all the details here because we're going to rebuild this. But if I go into the logs of the AI agent, we can actually see the thoughts that it went through. If you're not familiar with what an AI agent is at a very, very high level, it's given a task to complete, and then it can do multiple steps to complete that task. A step could be a thought as a way to think of it, or consuming a tool. So as you see here, the first thing it did is it consumed this prompt that we're feeding into it and the system message. So this is the instruction that we're giving to it. Its first thought was then to get the pricing, and then it thought again on that pricing that it got, and then it understood that it needs to calculate the number. Now, this is different from the number that JJ had because this is, again, some pinned data from my webhook, but we'll pull in a live one when we rebuild this in a moment. And then we got that response back out. This is a great example of how tools can be really useful for AI agents because, again, things like math, you don't want your LLMs doing inside their brain, so to speak. You want it to use a tool which is going to be a lot more reliable. And then, again, it had a thought because it got some new information. And then it's using a structured output parser, which what this does is if I go to the output, this is what allows our AI agent to output this really structured data here instead of, for example, if you were just using ChatGPT to just reply to the user in a big blob of text. Because this is structured data, that means that later in my flow, we can update that. And then from there, if it's successful, we have an Airtable step where we basically update that record. We update the status, as you can see there, and we post these new values that we had here. And then if it doesn't work, we update the status to that the generation failed, so we can show the user, hey, the proposal generation failed, and then they could redo that. Now, this AI agent that we're going to show you here, there's another version of one that we're going to show you with a few more bits and pieces. But this is a good sort of MVP, minimum viable product that you could think of as you're building a backend for something similar like this. If there's no questions, I recommend we jump into the building so we have time to sort of build this out, show you the build out and a few neat tips and tricks inside of n8n. So what I'm going to do is go into here and go into a blank workflow, basically. And this is what it's going to look like when you open up a new n8n workflow. And the first thing we're going to do is add our first step. And since we're making a backend, it's basically an API endpoint that our front end Softr is going to be consuming. We need to add a webhook call. But in n8n, there's various different kinds of triggers that you could use. As you can see here, hundreds of different app events. Our own little form trigger if you need a really lightweight front end. Obviously, Softr, you can sort of build out, like a proper front end, schedule triggers, and various other things. But since we're building a backend, let's click the webhook call. And JJ, was this a get or a post request that we're doing here?
It was, let's see, I think it was a post. I'll double check now.
Okay, yep, it was a post. I just took a peek into the screen.
Cool.
All right, so we're going to set the HTTP method to post. If you're not familiar with HTTP methods and whatnot, these are basically verbs, as you can think of them. So are we getting something from this backend, or are we posting? In this case, we're posting because we're creating something. We're trying to create the proposal, right? So the first thing that we need to do is to get that data from Softr into my webhook trigger so that we can consume this, basically. So JJ, how about I send you this URL in our private chat here, and what I'm going to do is click listen for test event.
Okay.
Now n8n's waiting for the Softr front end to send an event. So JJ, would you be so kind as to initiate a request so we can get that data in, please?
Yep. Give me 1 second. I'm getting there.
Thank you much.
Dun-dun-dun-dun.
Now, one thing as JJ is doing that, you'll see here in the path, there's kind of a preset path here, that's just kind of a random alphanumeric. I could overwrite that, right? So if we wanted this to be / generate proposal backend, we could do that as well. In today's setup, we're not going to add authentication onto this endpoint, which does mean that anyone could ping this from across the internet. So if you are sending this up, you may want to add a little bit of authentication on that, and we support all the sort of major types that are available.
Sorry, 1 second still. I'm
No
getting
problem.
there. All right. While we're waiting for that, any other things that we can chat about?
Well, what I could do, JJ, because the structure should be more or less the same, I got a copy, and perhaps we could start from pin trigger, and then we could run this step afterwards.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just about there. Give me one more second. I'll be right there. All right, I'm gonna send it your way right now. Let's see how that goes.
Beautiful, done. All right.
All right, beautiful.
So we've gotten the request from JJ here. If I collapse the headers, we can see there's that data that we need in there. Perfect. It looks like some of, let's see, let's go into JSON here. Okay, yeah, looks like some of the information isn't being sent over, JJ, right now.
Okay.
But so what I can do is, meanwhile, is show folks the neat edit feature. So this is the data that came in from the request. If I hit edit here, I can actually modify this data, which is great for testing. For example, maybe you've got this said Bloomdroid, but you need to test with something else to do a quick test. You can do that. I'm going to select everything and hit Command V, and I'm just pasting in a previous version of this that I had. So let's go ahead and save that. But we can swap that out right before the end here. And then by editing that, it pinned this data. So what that means is now every time I click test workflow, it's going to just take the pinned data in this node and push that out. The nice thing is if I save my workflow and come back to it, this will still be pinned, but this will just be for test mode. So once I activate the workflow, we won't be using that data. It's just for testing.
Max, I'm ready to send you some updated data.
Oh, great. All right, so let's unpin this data and let's hit that test event. And I'm ready for you, JJ.
All
Beautiful.
right.
All right,
How's that?
let's see. I'm missing the tenant information and the property name. But I think I got most stuff here. I can start building and then we can resend this because I got the various
Cool.
values here to map. All right. So again, I'm going to pin this. I can actually right click here as well and pin, or I can even hit P. So I just hit the P key there to pin that. All right, let's add an AI agent. I'm usually typing for it in the search here, but just so everyone knows, it's in the advanced AI section. And we've got an AI agent here. So let me click to add that to the canvas. Now, the first thing we want to do is set up some of the dependencies here. AI agents always need an LLM, an AI model, to do their thinking. So let's go ahead and add that. In this case, I am going to use OpenAI because they got the new 4.1 model, which is really powerful. But we support various ones here, including even self-hosted models. If that's important for you, for example, maybe you're an enterprise and you've got some sensitive data, you can run local models as well. Let me click to add the OpenAI chat model. In this case, I'm going to use my existing OpenAI credential. If you're setting it for the first time, you're going to create a credential, add your API key, and then you could rename that as well. But we'll save you some time here. And then the model that I'm going to select is I'm going to leverage the awesome new 4.1 model. It's come out recently. I've been playing around with it. It's far better at tool usage. So for agentic stuff, I always recommend to use sort of one of the more powerful models, especially if you're using various different tools. We could modify some settings here and whatnot. It's not necessary in this case, but just to call out, you've got all that stuff under the hood that you would usually expect if you're using it as an API. And then from here, let's go ahead and set up the AI agent, and then we'll go set up the tools. So if I open this up, in here, by default, it's expecting that we're using a chat experience, but we're using this as an API endpoint. So instead, we're going to set this up manually. So I'm going to click Define below here. And then here we have the prompt from the user. Now, to save everyone time from typing out, I am going to paste that in. So let's go ahead and do that.
Max, do you have any tips for prompting and give too much, give not enough, or all the any kind of
Yeah,
information?
yeah. So my first advice is when you're writing these prompts is as you're building, less is more. So start with minimal instruction. Definitely be precise. But if you add too much and you're having bugs or problems, you're not sure if it's the prompt that you added. So I would say start with less, test. If it's not working, add rules and whatnot. And the prompting is going to be split between the user message. So this is if you were in ChatGPT typing. This is the equivalent of the request that you're sending, and also the system message, which is basically like the rules and the instructions. It's almost like the employee manual that you have for the AI agent on how it should do its job. But let's set up the user message first. So right now we're saying output a proposal in a structured format, given the input details below. Here's all the different details that we have coming in from my webhook. And what we can do is set this to an expression in n8n. And actually, let's expand this so that everyone can see this a little bit better. And what I can do is actually drag and drop values from the left here from earlier in my workflow in here. So if we go to the property address here, we can see we can map that there. Let's
By the way,
see.
I love that feature.
Yeah, really neat, right? You can
Yeah.
also type this out, for example, if you're more into that sort of thing with autocomplete. But I'm a drag and dropper. And then let's see what else we have here. We need the landlord. We can actually search for that as well. Perfect. We need the property name. Right, that is empty right now, but that'll be once with JJ we'll fix that and we'll do another call. And you can see on the right here it's rendering. So we're seeing this is what the LLM is actually going to see, what our AI agent's actually going to see. So
In
let me
this
just
case, Max, I don't think the property name is going to affect the result because we're really just getting the total and the summary, so we should be okay.
Okay, sounds good. And as folks, as you can see here, obviously, whatever you're going to do in your use case is probably going to be a little bit different. So it's really the pattern that we're showing you here, right? We're showing you how to map input data, give context to your LM, so it can do a better job than, let's say, just a ChatGPT experience. Here, let's add the tenant as well. And then the most important thing is this technician notes, right?
Yep.
So
That's what we're using, so the agent knows to go and get that information from the Airtable database, like pricing and whatnot.
exactly. So let's see here. Yeah, we got the notes. Perfect. So now this is what the AI agent's going to see there. Now, we also want to add a system message because we want to constrain a little bit how this AI agent operates to complete this task. And by default, it's only system messages that you are a helpful assistant. So the first thing that we want to do is role prompting. So this is a best practice almost every time that you're working with an AI agent. You want to tell them who they are, right? I like to use these sort of markdown styled headers to separate the different sections of the system message, because we'll have a few more. So here we're saying you're an assistant specialized in preparing a professional service work proposal for someone that is requesting work to be done. Being specific really helps here. My biggest advice is write a rough draft and then go into your favorite GPT of choice, be it Claude or be it ChatGPT, and say, hey, you're writing a part of a system message. Improve this draft. Important thing is there to say that it's writing a part of it, because it'll assume otherwise that it's writing the whole thing and it'll give you way too much. Okay, so there's the role. Now, in the specific case, because this isn't the most complicated task, we can get away with basically just having a set of rules. Now, the one thing that I'll, let's see, that's still pasting in. Yeah. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is these rules, when I was building this out, these are things that I added as I went along. So this part you might want to do sort of once you're testing it. But just to save everyone time, these are the rules that was basically most effective to get this job done. So use the get pricing tool, which we're going to add in a sec, to fetch the prices for services. Never guess or make up prices. That's a really important one. Always use the calculator tool to sum costs. When calculating those costs, again, we don't want the LLM to kind of guess on that. Let's use a calculator. And then we were having it wasn't playing ball with some formatting on the pricing, or on the specific part of this. So then again, I just kind of reiterated, hey, do it in this format. And I said, here's an example. This is an example of one-shot prompting. It's really useful to do that.
And Max, we also need to output it in a certain way, right?
Yeah. So we're also going to be adding some structured output as well. So we'll do that as the last step. Okay. So let's go ahead and set up the tools. Now, I'll click on this plus here. You can see n8n's got a bunch of different tools here for lots of different apps of services. You can even run another n8n workflow, which is super powerful for multi-agentic stuff. And you've got a supervisor agent directing child agents. In this case, though, let's first add the calculator tool. Now, the nice thing with this one is there's really nothing to set up. It's a calculator. By adding this, our AI agent will know how to use that now. So that'll be useful for the math steps when it's summing the different services. But what we need to add is ability for it to get the pricing, right? So since that's an Airtable, let's add the Airtable tool. And the first thing I recommend is to rename this. So let's call this get pricing. And one thing you'll notice, or one thing I recommend, is the name of the tool here. I always recommend to use the exact same name whenever you're referencing it, because then it's a one-to-one match, and it's going to have a stronger connection when the LLM is thinking about this. So as you can see, that it's got the same name there. Now let's open this up. By default, and I have already created an API here, but again, this would be just adding your access token here. And if you're ever curious, you can open up our docs, which shows you how to go do that. But I'll use an existing connection. Now, the tool description, n8n tools do have a description set by default. In this specific case, we're going to make it a bit more robust for this, because all we need this to do is get the pricing itself. So again, I'm going to just paste that in. So use this tool to fetch the specific pricing of services. It returns the entire price list of services. Okay, so what we want to do now is get records, because we want to pull the pricing. The base that we want to pick from, this is going to be the base that we're using here for this project. The table that we want to pull from, we're going to load that, and it's the pricing here. And the record ID, this is
it's coming through in the webhook.
Yeah. Or no, we don't need that, do we? We need a get all here, KJ, don't we?
Yeah. You're right. We're fetching all of the pricing.
Yep. So what we're actually going to do here is do a search on that. And we're not going to filter by anything because we want to get all of the pricing. Now, again, if you had hundreds and hundreds of prices, you may want to filter down a little bit. What you could do there is actually set this button here, and this would allow my AI agent to decide what to filter by. You might want to add a little bit of a description there to show how to filter there. But in this case, because we have about 20, 30 items in there, we're just going to have it pull all of the pricing each time.
And that's not vectorized, right, Max? That's just bringing everything back for the agent to review.
Exactly, exactly. You don't need to use a vector store or something like that when we're talking about a price list of 20, 30, 40, 50 items. And in fact, that's increasing every day because the context windows, that's how much context, how much text basically the LM can take as input, is increasing with each time these foundation models are improved. So for most of these use cases, I wouldn't necessarily worry about that too much. Okay, and then from here, there's nothing else that we should need to do inside the tool. So we've got our calculator and our pricing, but right now it's just going to output text because we haven't defined how we want the output to go out. Since we want a structured output, we'll go into our AI agent and check required specific output format. Now, this will add a new output here. If I just move these subnodes, so you can see that, we see now we've got the output parser here. We can click on this, and there's a few different ones here. The main one I'm usually using is the structured output parser. It's a really easy way to have our AI agent output in a structured JSON format, which is basically, I would say, used almost every time where you're kind of trying to create a backend endpoint for like a front end, like software to consume. So click to add that. And as you can see, it's auto-connected that there. And in here, basically what it expects is an example with good placeholder data of what that should be. Now, I'm going to quickly copy an example of what we had already. So you're going to see me typing this all out and paste that in. Let's just expand that so you can take a quick look. So here you can see this is what we expect the AI agent to output every time. And I think the one thing when you're writing this here, it's best to have a real example of what that data would be and not a description of what it should be. So here you can see this is a representative example. For example, here the total cost, we want it as a number, so we're showing a number. We're not showing it as a text in quotes. So that's all context that we're providing to it without having to explicitly write that out. Now, if you have a very, very complicated structure that you want to output or a very tight spec there, you can also define the schema manually, which would allow you to set the data types and stuff of that. But being honest, I'm almost rarely using it because these newer models, this is plenty context for it to sort of get the job done. Okay, so we've got all these dependencies here. If the demo gods are with us, clicking test step here should have this all run in one shot perfectly. And you can see it called the get pricing tool, called the calculator tool, now the OpenAI tool, and then the structured output. Let's quickly take a look in here. We can see we've got various things getting pulled out. Perfect. Got a total cost. We can go into the logs here as well, and we can see, again, like in the previous example, we got the chat model, we pulled the pricing, we again had a thought, we used the calculator to sum some stuff, went back in the OpenAI, it had a think, and then it structured that output. Now, looking at the time, I'm going to move right along, but if some questions, maybe we can handle them at the end. So from here, basically, we need to post this to Airtable, right? So I can search for Airtable, but you could also find it in action in an app in here. And I'm going to click to add that. And what we want to do here is we want to update a record because that proposal already exists. So we don't want to create a new one. So we'll click update. And here again, we're going to use the existing Airtable credential. We want to update a record. Again, we're going to choose here the base. The table here is the, let's see, I think it's the proposals table. Service request. Thanks, JJ. Great co-pilot. All right, there it is, service request. And the column that we want to match on, JJ, that is the record ID, is that right? Perfect. So that's how it's going to know which record to update. And then here, we're going to want to actually go into my webhook because the AI agent didn't generate that. We already know that. So we don't need the AI agent to tell us that. And is that the related request here, JJ?
Looks like it.
Yep, perfect. So I'm going to pop that in there. Now, by default, it's added all the different values to set, but we only need some of these. So JJ, what are we updating here?
We're updating the total and the summary.
Okay, cool. And the estimate status as well, right? To admin review?
Yep.
Okay. So this is an example of we're setting this statically. Now, the summary of
Summary
item
of items. Yep.
prices, let's go into the AI agent's output now, and let's map that summary here. So again, I can drag and drop that. Now, the neat thing in n8n, this is now set to an expression. So in an expression, I could also combine static text along with that dynamic text, which is super useful when you're making like a Slack notification or something like that. And then within this expression itself, if I hit a period here, we've got our autocomplete with a bunch of helper functions, and this is also JavaScript. So if you're techie, you can actually leverage your skill set in there and modify this as well, but we don't need that in this case because our AI agent set that. Okay, so we've got the summary of prices. Let's remove some of these other ones here because they're already set, so we don't need to reset them. And then we need to get that price as well, right? So let's see. Let's see where that price is. Amount, okay. And then for the amount, we're going to go in here. We're going to get that total cost. Drag and drop that in here. All right, so let's test this step. And the nice thing is it didn't rerun our AI agent. It just took the last data from there and ran that. Perfect. That's successful. We can see we got a green check mark. From Airtable, we kind of get a big verbose response. This is just the fully updated item. In this case, it's in JSON, but again, I can look this in a table if that's easier for me, or in schema view, which is kind of my favorite for this kind of stuff.
Hey, Max, before we proceed, can we just double check that record ID? If you go to the input and search, want to make sure that it's the right one from the webhook. It should just be record ID if you search it.
Sure thing, I can search for that. Let's see, let's go in here. Let's collapse the headers. And
all right, we'll take it with the related request and we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
There's a couple in there. That's why I'm a little confused because it's a couple related properties, a couple related requests, but I think it is the related request one.
Okay. Okay, cool. So now that this is set, this is good, right? But the
That's
thing
good.
is, steps could fail, right? So the best practice here would be is to account for that failing because tech can fail and we need to let the user know that. So in our AI agent, we can actually go to the settings. And if this step errors out, because AI agents are probabilistic, there's a couple % chance that this might not work out, or the service tech requests a service that we don't have pricing for and we told our AI to not hallucinate. So we're going to allow it, if it errors out, if that schema can't be met, the structured output, we're going to allow it to go out to an error branch here. Now, what we can do is duplicate this node here, and what we can actually do is update proposal. We can rename this so it's clear for us when we come back. And here we can say update with error, just so that's a little clearer for us. We can connect this branch here. And then in here, we don't have to change any of these settings here. But what we can do is remove these values because we didn't generate a proposal. And we can just set the status to generation failed. So if this step doesn't work, we'll show that in Airtable, which means we'll show it to the user. From here, we can save it and activate the workflow.
Which also means that we need to switch to our production URL, correct?
That's right, JJ. So now that it's activated, as you saw when we were testing this, we used our test URL. But now that it's activated, it's this URL that we need to use for it to run live. And so let me copy this and send this to JJ so we can swap that out in there. And then
Max,
basically, yeah.
If you don't mind, I'm just going to take control of the screen quick and just show people how I'm swapping it out. So
please do. I think that'd be really valuable.
All right. So over here on my side, we see that we have an action button up here. And on the action button, it's the call API. And right over here is the endpoint that we're using. I'm just going to copy and paste that endpoint. I show I have a post method. And then here's all the data that I'm sending with this call API as well. And I can just go in there and I can add more parameters, values. I can pull from records on the page and whatnot to send that dynamic data. But now that this is updated and this is live, we're ready to test it on my end and send it back to Max.
Okay, perfect. Ready for you, JJ.
All right. Should I hit this then?
Please do.
All right. So we got one coming your way, but let me actually get you with another one here because I think I'm going to send you more data
Okay.
coming out of the way.
I've received that request. We see the workflows executing.
Cool.
And we can see that it.
Do you want to bring up your screen again? Yeah.
All right, so we can see in here, I'm in the executions tab because this was a production execution. You can see the difference here is test executions that we were doing before. We got this little beaker here, but in here we can see that it ran, and we can actually copy this to the editor, unpin the previous data that we had, and here's the execution that JJ just ran. And we can see it also updated the proposal. We can see in our AI agent, this is a different data, right, from what we had in my previous test. So successful from my end. JJ, you seeing it on your side?
Yep, it's good on our end too. Max, let me ask you a couple of questions quick.
Sure.
So we asked the AI agent to only pull in pricing that we had in our pricing table. But Max, how could we also account for something where the technician asked for a price that we don't have in that table yet? What might we do in n8n to adjust our flow?
Sure. So there's a few different things you could do. I think the best advice here would be using some of our human in the loop nodes. So the AI agent, right? We've been talking a lot about context and getting context. Yourself as a human, you're a great source of context for that. So you could use one of these send and wait nodes where the structure would be a little bit different. We would tell our AI agent if you don't have certain data outputs, with the structured output that you're seeking data, we might have an if step there. It would check for if it outputted that it needs data, and then it could use one of these send and wait nodes to fetch data from the human. And once it's got that data, we could actually then loop back into the AI agent and rerun it all from the same sort of step. So that's a bit of out of scope of this. But again, if that's something that you need to do, there's a no-code way to do that in n8n as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. Now, JJ, I know we're close to time here, but I'd be remiss to not show a quick different version of this workflow, which has got a few more bells and whistles. Now, the version that you're seeing here, I think especially as we're talking for internal apps, is totally fine, right? But there's obviously more that you could do, more that you could invest. The more you're talking about mission critical, the more that hyperscale is important to you, or if you have a really complicated use case. So when we're actually going to go is to well, firstly, let's save this so we don't lose our work. But let's go over to the Softr Collab here project. And there's a V2 of this backend that we cooked up cooking show style before. And let's just quickly run this because it's got pen data as well. And I'll walk you through this. But in a nutshell, we got a very similar output here. In fact, it's basically the same. The one difference here is that we got a bit of a different structure here. And we're outputting an array of the actual line items. So in the previous one, we were just outputting a single text for the different line items of the different services. But here we've got the total cost and each one of those as its own structured object. Why that's useful is, well, firstly, we go out to the success branch here and we do some validation on that data, right? So we're expecting there's a scope of work text, there's line items, and in the if node here, we're checking for that, right? So we're seeing if the line items is not empty, and if the scope of work text exists, and if the total cost exists, then we'll go to the true branch. Otherwise, we'd output to the false branch, and we could actually do this here, which would then update the proposal as generation failed, just like in the last step, but we've got some validation there. Now, just because I remapped this here, that's why we're getting that yellow triangle here. But then if that is valid, we go to the true branch here, and what we're doing here is, in this version, we're outputting an HTML formatted proposal. So we could convert that to PDF in future or make it a dedicated web page. Either way, here we're showing HTML, but we're showing that you can structure this in different ways for different outputs depending on your use case. And what we wanted in this HTML proposal is to actually have a nice fancy HTML table for those line items. So what we're doing here is we're actually using a basic chain. That's what this step is. You can see it doesn't have tools. And if you don't need to use tools, I would recommend to not use an AI agent because basic chains are a little bit simpler. Here for the user message, for the prompt, the instruction, we see we've got some input data. which if I open this up, we see that we've got that description. Sorry, what we're doing here is we're taking these line items in here, and we're basically joining them. Now, this is using a map function, it's using a little JavaScript. They kind of bend my brain as well, but I use ChatGPT. I basically took this input and I said, hey, I need it to be in a list, and it generated this out. So if you're not very comfortable with code, know that you can use your co-pilots, your assistants to kind of help you on a few of those steps. We give this context, and then we basically give an example of how we want that to look like. As you can see here, this is HTML, and then it outputs that. So this is the line item structured in HTML table, which would be actually kind of difficult perhaps to do without this AI step. And then we're using an n8n set node, and in here, we're outputting a proposal HTML. And if I open this up, most of this proposal is static. So I don't want my AI to keep generating that each time. It's more likely to be variable and inconsistent. So instead, I'm taking the data from early in my workflow and those line items that we generated. If you see here, got a bunch of styling, a bunch of HTML, and here are those expressions that I drag and dropped in. As you can see here, those are rendering out nicely. Now, just in the interest of time, JJ, what I can do quickly is pop this in a text file.
I can even show it on my side.
You got on your side?
Yep,
Perfect.
let's do it.
Hi, brother.
All right. So over here on the Softr side, if you bring me on stage quickly,
Yeah.
we prepared two different ways. We built the proposal in Softr for V1, but in V2, we're using the HTML that we're storing in Airtable, and we're using either a rich text field or an embed field. And then from there, we can show that HTML directly in Softr in that way as well. So it's flexible enough to handle what you're looking for. I do think that building it directly in Softr is a little bit more better because you might have some conflicting HTML with this embed in this way, but otherwise you should be really good with both options there.
Yeah.
So we got you covered there. Max, as we go to wrap up here, I do want to remind people of our leave behinds because we got some good stuff for you, right? So if you RSVP, which I put the link in the chat many times now, we're going to send you the Softr template that we showed today, the full thing, and then both n8n templates that you can use, the V1 and the V2. So this way you could see how we have done this at the micro level and get into each one of those. Plus, we're going to send you promo codes for new users that give you 1 month free at Softr and 1 month free at n8n for new users. That way you could start building with Softr and n8n with these templates to start, modifying these templates for your own use case. So we will email you all of that later today with all the information. But otherwise, Max, what else do you got on your side?
Well, just one thing on our promo. So with n8n, you get a 2-week free trial. And so what you can do is you can write out that free trial, and then afterwards, here, JJ, let's get us, there we go. And then afterwards, you can use that promo code to basically get 100% off any of our standard plans. You're basically getting 6 weeks free to Flowgram out to your heart's content, get your app launched, create some value for those stakeholders, and really own your solution and be able to tweak it as you go. JJ, I just wanted to say thank you so much for this live build. It's always nice when you can split up the work so you can do a bit more and focus on your side. Obviously, you're the expert of your tool. I know a thing or two about n8n. I think together we kind of showed everyone what's possible. And again, I think to reiterate, to me, whenever we build these use cases, we're never going to, for most people, create exactly what you need. But I think what we showed today, JJ, is if you learn the means of your own production, you can build whatever you want, right? Like in the n8n workflow, if that had to be an image generator, for example, or a chart, it's a swap of a node, it's a swap of one of the last steps. Maybe you're changing an AI model that has more vision capabilities or something, and you're off to the races.
Yeah, it's really great where we are and what we're able to build. With Softr, you can build business tooling client portals very quickly. Most of our folks build their whole interface, the whole app within the first week, and then you could pair that with n8n, with agentic workflows, AI automations to really expand that functionality. There's a ton of use cases that you can build. You use a conditional form in Softr to accept applications for an upcoming job, send those applications to an n8n agent, have them pre-qualify those applications, schedule automated interview follow-ups, all that kind of stuff. There's so many ways that you could take this. And with these two systems together, you have that beautiful interface that's super simple to use, and then that power in the back end to really create that magic that you need to do a lot of that legwork for you. And so it's been an honor working with n8n. Thank you for doing this with us. I also use n8n on the side for my own stuff, my own agentic stuff, and then of course Softr for all the other stuff. So it's a beautiful combination. Bring these two together. I hope you guys learned a ton. Both n8n and Softr have their respective academies, their online forums. We will also email you all those that are RSVP'd, the leave behinds, and then those related links so you can learn more. But sky's the limit with these two tools. I hope you guys have a ton of fun building with it, and we can't wait to see what you build next.
Likewise. Thanks so much, JJ, for being an amazing co-host.
Ditto. Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
everyone.
Enjoy
Ciao.
your Friday.